Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Tuesday, June 30th meeting of the Municipal Planning Commission up here in Belfair. We will go ahead and start with our Pledge of Allegiance. Chris Cluster, would you please do the honor of leading us in our Pledge of Allegiance? Bill.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we start with the open forum of citizens input, I do not mean to be rude, but I'm expecting votes right now. That includes Belfair Bypass, so if you see me looking down, they're going to be hitting me with that, so I hope to share the news with you guys here shortly. We'll find out. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and move into open forum for citizens input. For the most part, we're not that structured when we have meetings up here. We do ask that you keep it fairly brief, though. You're not going to be severely restricted. With that being said, is there anybody who would like to speak on any item that may be on your mind tonight? I know. That's ever happened. Ken, where are you?
I'm waiting to hear the updates.
All right. Did you have any? You had a hand for a second.
Well, I wanted to wait to hear on some of these things too, because I had questions for the water district, matter of fact.
Okay. Then we will make sure there's a sample time for you guys to go through that. So with that, let's go ahead and, did you see him? Oh, Mukau.
Two things. There are 2 points I'd like to make. First is I've been finding the ignition interlock system for almost 5 years. I haven't drank in over 5 years. I've been on medical treatment. I've had 2 major surgeries. I walk every single day and pray. I got numb so elevated and funny. Long way I looked inside myself. I expected the other day when I walked into court that the judge would say, all right, we found that you didn't really have any compliance and that the machines are stupid and defective and do not do like they're supposed to. You do have records that show that there's one company said that the machine's messing up. You have another company that they tried to blackmail you because you didn't have money to pay them, that they're going to keep your car. You have a state patrol officer have the ignition system put in. And when he took the test, failed the test before they put the machine even in my car. All right, I'm still soul searching. I go do this. I finally found what I want to do for myself. How do you open that? And I've done that. I thought, well, I'll show that and get a thank you and blessings and just be done with everything. No. What the prosecutor did is make me have to go back to court with another attorney and turn around my appellate attorney, which they never notified me of the court date for that. And when I contacted the courts, I got to run around again. Never met, talked to the attorney, nothing. Finally did. He called me back the next day or 2 after we go to court. He says, well, that prosecutor is going to nail you as if you were a suspected murderer because you filed an appeal. Now I'm going to talk things off. This is different. She was from my dog. She was given to a friend as a service dog for his post-traumatic stress. Guess what? He's murdered in our city over drugs and money. You're going to come after me for a defective device, and I have so many, and they're trying to say one particular day. I had to get the state patrol to step in and go through everything and walk me out of that dang system. And I've been on the state patrol with Mr. Solensberg, helped me all the way through it. We got all the paperwork. That's over 2 years ago. But again, he's going to come after me like I'm a convicted murderer instead of going after the murderer. This here is when I go to pay. This is a letter I get from the corporate headquarters, and I hope you read it out loud.
Well, I can't look out if you'd like. After this meeting, I would love to, I'll sit down with you, we'll go over this stuff individually, okay?
I'll tell you what it says. The one is my ordainment for becoming an ordained minister. The other one is a note that says that a Federal Reserve note is not acceptable form of payments. How are you supposed to pay your bills if you don't take cash?
Thank you. I'll talk to you, I'll go ahead and meet with you afterwards, though, I'll be happy to. With that being said, is there anybody further who would like to discuss any issue tonight? It's okay. Yes.
A I believe I asked you last time about the property behind Bill Hunter Park.
Yes.
You were gonna get back to me on.
It is still for sale, it is still up. As a matter of fact, oddly enough, I got to talk to the realtor because I got a call from their owner yesterday, so, but that it is still up for sale.
Is there any progress with the county trying to purchase that?
Not at this point, no. We don't have the money to purchase it at this point. It would have to be, if anything like that was to happen, it would have to be through a grant process. We don't have the extra cash just to buy a piece of property. But there's talk, MTA just had a conversation with me, what was it, Friday, a member of the executive director asking me about it and thinking about maybe looking at that as well. But that's going to come up during Mason Transit Authority board meetings. We didn't get too deep.
Because it'd be a shame to let that, I mean, that's not suitable for any business, the way it is, and it would make that park a lot nicer.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak today? Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on and move up to item number 4, which is our update. Washington State Fish and Wildlife land located on State Highway 3. Bob? Okay. Oh, there you go. I'm sorry. The last time, if you don't mind coming up and speaking to the folks, there was some questions about the land and what's been going on with it and what some of the possibilities might be. And if you don't mind sharing that, appreciate it.
Don't mind at all. My name is Bob Cannon. I work for the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'm the West Side Land Supervisor. I do not manage that particular piece of property. A gentleman by the name of Shane Belson does, and he's the wildlife area manager. We bought that piece of property, I think about 1.5 years ago now, from the Cumloos. The purpose for buying it, we bought it with an RCO grant, was to provide water access and recreation. And we removed the building and the septic system off it, and there's a lot of rocks, and there's a gate there, and possibly they're going to put a parking area in there and develop a trail down to the water. When we acquire a piece of the property, generally we do it for full transpecting. We do it for habitat and recreation purposes, and that's what this was. And there's certain requirements when we receive a grant that kind of dictate how we manage that piece of property. But that's basically it. We have no plans to develop it in any major way. We'd like to see the whole Union River area, the whole Union Cove there. We'd like to see some opportunities made available for waterfowl hunting and things like that. We have a couple of lines that we leased from the Belfair Center down there in the wetlands. And basically, any questions?
When you reference the waterfront usage, are you talking public usage or are you talking private usage?
Oh, public, yeah. The public can go on it now. You can use it now.
Since it is public land, when you put that gate up, you made it so nice that nobody can park there. So why not move that around and allow the public to park? So if they want to walk in there right now, I don't think there's any legal way of parking there. Now, you didn't do it, I know. But
I think one of the reasons is we have, once we start allowing, parking and things like that on our property, where we have developed parking lots, that's one issue. Where we don't, it becomes an issue where people dumping garbage, and all of a sudden we have to have people go out and pick it up and clean it up, and those type of situations. So I think in that particular piece of property, I'm not sure why they put the gate up. I knew they were going to put the rocks in, kind of prevent the parking, but it becomes more of like a management problem if we allow too much parking on it. So
we had the same problem at the bottom of Sand Hill that turned out wildlife put a gate up a number of years ago, and they left the gate open. Then a number of years ago, all of a sudden they locked the gate. I raised holy hell, and they called me over and over. They agreed to open the gate, and they have not had a problem. They said, we'll do it on a trial for 6 months, and the guy called me back, and he says, we haven't had a single problem to stay open.
You know, well, I can put you in touch with Shane, he's the wildlife area manager, and, I mean, he very well could agree to that. I really don't know. He should have been here, he was on vacation, so, he sent me instead.
Bob Harris, you got a question?
Just with reference to the possibility of developing that, and talk about putting a trail down there, maybe. Is that a difficult process to get a permit for that?
You know, I don't actually know about the permit. It's more a matter of, we'll have to do some planning, we'll have to find, means to pay for that. We can, a lot of times we'll use like convict crews or that kind of labor to come in, it just would be a rough trail.
Well, I assume you would have to have a permit though, or can you just?
I can't answer that.
You know, I've got property down the road, and I've always wanted to do that, just go out and make a trail down there.
Well, I was only, maybe shoreline management trail, I mean, for permit, I really truly don't know why you would need a permit for
Have
a trail.
our community development director.
Would the state need a permit to put a trail down to the water right here on Highway 3?
I don't think the trail itself would be a permit. It would depend on how much dirt you want to do. You
Right.
take trees too close to the shoreline, that kind of thing.
Rob Drexler?
I just I just want to make a comment that I think that since you bought that property, took it off the tax rolls, took a whole bunch of commercial highway frontage out of the UGA, that you should go ahead, and if you got to bite the bullet and pay somebody to fix it, you need to do that. That's the way I feel about it. You being your department, your organization, should, in fact, I'm sorry, you bought it, so you ought to make it nice for the town, if that's what you're going to do. Right now, it looks like it's junk and it's terrible, and we lost a whole lot of commercial road frontage besides 1%.
Well, you lost a restaurant, then you lost a 5-star property, which was my exportable house, and get down. And then we bought the Martin property also. But it was in an effort, we bought a whole bunch of waterfront property there to try to protect it and to restore it in some places. But,
And somehow you should make a difference when you pull that off our tax rolls, because we're sitting here and can't buy a park. But yet that money, the potential for construction, I'm in real estate, so I get this, and so the potential for commercial income there is now gone. And so if you have to, and that's fine, I mean, that's the rules, and you guys bought it, and hallelujah, but you should now have to step up and do it right way.
well, I don't know, all of our wildlife areas have a plan. So I really truly can't speak to what the specific is of that plan. But believe me, yeah, Shane would be our wildlife area manager. He would be more than happy to discuss these with you. And I don't know, I hate to come to a meeting and just say, I don't know. But it's kind of.
I would hope you would take these back, because I guess the point is, these comments and things that are said, I would hope you would take those back.
Yeah.
Ken Van Busker?
Bob, I believe that area, even though the Fish and Wildlife owner is still in the urban growth area, but it's going to be impacted when the second phase of Highway 3 widening happens, when and if it does. And won't that impact that property?
We looked at that. I remember looking at that when we were buying it, and I thought most of the work was going to be done on the opposite side of the road, but a little of that we knew would be impacted. And I know that when you drive by that piece of property, there's a billboard, and I know that billboard will not be impacted by the road and widening the road. So I think that billboard had a 30-year lease on it. We don't put billboards in Fish and Wildlife land. So we had to stay to a boundary line adjustment for that billboard, but they had a 30-year lease on it or something. But I remember that was not going to be impacted. So I really don't know how much of that frontage would be impacted. I know there's a hydrant right on the leading edge of that property. It might even be in the right of way.
Chris, did you still have a question?
No, not much of a question, but more like to take back as a comment is that The grant money that you received, was that a private grant money or state taxes for grant?
It was an RCO, that recreation fund.
So,
Yeah.
in the theory that I'm a taxpayer, and you have taken money from our income as a tax by no longer paying property taxes, and you have a piece of property that you say is accessible, but I can't actually park there without being on the street to access a waterfront with my kayak, perhaps, or some walking trail down there. But the fence up to me in a local area like Belfair, I would hope that that would be opened up, if it was designed for that, to create parking, single car going in, 5 or 6 cars, whatever it is, create a little bit more access for maybe our kayak type people in the area, other than just going around that sand hill in order to do a launch site. That would be a great use for something that also satisfies what you had to do and keep the property.
But yeah, and and I'll take all these comments back seriously that our wildlife area manager. And my understanding was that any of those and all of those uses were going to be allowed on that piece of property. I just don't know where they are, or if there's a trail out there, an existing trail out there that you're supposed to use. But I know that the public is more than welcome to use that piece of property now. I realize it's not rushed out or anything like that.
And have a closed gate,
Yeah.
which almost says it's not.
Well, yeah, but the closed gate does not prevent you from using it.
Well, lots of closed gates do prevent you in the county, so I would
It might
assume.
prevent you from.
I don't go behind a lock gate myself.
Well, if there's
Just
rocks
something
there, you
like
can walk.
There's also no signage or anything saying that you can go in, that is public or that.
Yeah, it's fine.
One
There's
other,
nothing.
one other thing that we were talking earlier, we have a developer who's asking to contact him on regards to that, and perhaps making that a kayak park and paying some local money to do it, through their family and stuff like that. We were talking right before it started, so he's gonna get us connected with that. Ken Van Buster,
I just wanted to mention, Bob, that just past that property, as you go down the South Shore, there's an access point that bird hunters are already going down there. And they hike down through the brush, and they're down below that property we're talking about, shooting ducks every weekend that it's open.
Yeah, well, we own that, like I say, we own a lot of, some of the properties further down in Tidewater. And so, yeah, and if it's ours, the public's welcome to use it.
Herb, I just as somebody that had asked a question, I'm gonna give the first one to you. Matt?
That was part of the discussion when it was up for sale, when they were thinking about buying it, was that it was going to be leased out to some kayak rental. Is that been taken off the table, or has no one stepped forward saying they want to rent the kayaks out in that area?
You know, that would have come to me if somebody wanted to lease the property. But and I have heard nothing whatsoever about that at all. The properties, since the last couple of years, it's had like a couple different managers, but at the same time, something like a request to lease it or something like that would have been kept in the system. And I haven't heard that at all, so I'm kind of surprised.
Herb?
Well, being purchased with RCO funds, there are requirements for recreation. And I don't know what your grant stated, but I'm sure your grant stated that you are going to do something with it now or in the immediate future. It appears like you just took the money and then swept it under the rug. DNR does that all the time too.
Well, we didn't sweep it under the rug. We usually buy the property, and what we generally do, we'll use an acquisition grant to go out and buy the property, and then as we move along, and sometimes it takes us years, we have to get another grant to develop trails or whatever. We don't have a lot of money, and I think we don't pay property taxes, but we do pay PILT, which is payment in lieu of taxes to the counties for the properties we own. So so we're sympathetic to the county needs and things like that and use. So I really don't know if if they're applying for grants or what their plans are long term down there. So.
Sure. You have any questions?
I have any questions.
Judy?
Well, speaking of Department of Natural Resource, with volunteer, they have criteria for building trails through the forests and whatnot. And so they might be also another avenue for volunteers to create a trail system, because it is desperately needed down in that area. And plus, if you could open that up and make it more accessible that does help bring a little bit more economy to Belfair as well. Because the more that they can stay here and utilize it, the better for us as a community. So you might pass that on and find out what kind of criteria is needed if volunteers can even build the trail system.
Yeah, I mean, these are all real good ideas, and I will take it back. I don't, I don't really and truly know, what has been discussed in the past or anything like that piece of property. I know that it's going to take effort to put a trail in. It's pretty steep in the backside there. And, but I do know that all along our plans have been to open it up to the public so that they can get down to the water. This is the first time I've heard anything about a kayak rental operation or anything down there. It seems like it'd be a beautiful spot for it, or up closer to the Belfair wetlands or up in that area. But yeah, but I'll take that back.
Well, Commissioner Jeffries,
And so, Mr. Kennedy,
Please don't.
folks here, I think I had asked this be on the agenda specifically because I echo the concerns that right in the middle of our urban growth area, which is our only commercial revenue generating areas basically in the county, is land being purchased by an organization that basically has a no-touch philosophy. And this is incompatible in my opinion. And so I appreciate the fact that is no, you don't have a close enough relationship with the project to know where we are with it. But I'm going to bring back to the commission in a meeting that we can actually take action, that we will be aggressively looking to have some identity folks about what you'll do that acknowledges this is an urban growth area. I think things like last time that we spoke to Mr. Belston when he was here.
But I didn't go into that.
Okay. They were still in the planning stages, and he was pretty adamant about, well, we couldn't put a bathroom in because DNR has, or Fish and Wildlife has dry parks and all these other things. But I don't think that acknowledges the fact that you're in an urban growth area. So I think that there's probably some space, and I'll be asking the commission to work with, we work together to put out some requests and we're working with you folks because you do have to identify that this is prime location for our commercial growth.
Well, and I think we always try to be good partners. There's a lot of, we're around the entire state, so we have a lot of partners and we try to work cooperatively with communities and things like that. And I will admit that is a very urbanized area for us to be in. And mainly because of that waterfowl habitat down in the water. That's why we bought this property. And so I mean, I think anything's possible. But any of our land is open for recreation, and we do promote that. And actually, as a requirement of that grant that we purchased that property with, it is recreation.
I understand, but there's a difference between recreation available or passive in a rural area as opposed to in an urban area.
Well, one thing I'd like to ask you on this, you mentioned good partners. I would like to share with you that one thing you can bring back, in order to be a good partner, you must have some interaction with the entities that you're partners with. And at this point, we have no real interaction, and it doesn't seem Port of Allen has any real interaction. I doubt if the Chamber of Commerce or some others, so somehow I think we need to carry that back, that in order to be a good partner, we need to become partners. So, on that. Ken Van Busker?
I just wanted to point out one thing to the public in general. When this RCO grant first came up quite a few years ago, it was based on the proximity to the Bremerton urban growth area. It wasn't based on the proximity to the Belfair urban growth area, because their population was such that it met the criteria. Mason County's population didn't meet it. So the grant basically the grant was provided because it met the proximity to the Bremerton urban growth area, not to the Belfair urban growth area.
Which would mean it should be able to be used by tourists that come in from Bremerton. Yep. But
yeah, so I'm just wanting to clarify, because most people don't know that.
we need to go ahead and move on. Is there any other questions? Yes.
I just kind of a larger level question for you, Bob, is what is a typical planning process for Fish and Wildlife as far as duration? Because I think a lot of these questions I'm hearing need to hear what kind of timeline you're really going to be working within.
You know, we have, within the wildlife area program, we have different like wildlife areas. And within those areas, we have units. This is the Union River unit, and it all falls under, I think, the specific, excuse me, South Puget Sound wildlife area. And so, since we just acquired these properties, I don't know if anybody's had time to sit down and work through a planning, put together a planning effort. And I don't know, generally the public process involves the larger wildlife area as opposed to like site specific like down here. But, you know, I think that Shane would be more than willing to, you know, sit down and talk with the, you know, county folks, the planners or whatever. But I think he'd be more than willing to sit down and talk with folks about, you know, that property and its use and things like that. I think there'll be certain requirements because we bought up the grant, and you know, our goal is the habitat and the recreation, and so you know, just what will be allowed, that'll have to come to Shane.
Bob, thank you very much for coming out. Please give me a call. We need to talk about the sergeant.
Okay. Oh.
But that's us offline, and
Okay.
that's other. So please.
Okay. Can do.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming
Any
down.
other questions?
Thank you. Again,
Thank you, guys.
all the way. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to go ahead and move into the next item on our list, and that is the State Highway 3 widening project update. Michelle?
Okay, I'm up here since you know what I'm expecting. I'm Michelle Britton. I am the project engineer at the Port Orchard Construction Office, and I've been assigned the Belfair area widening project. We opened bids on May 20th, and we had a low bidder was Zacanti Inc. of Tacoma. We executed the contract on June 16th, so we now have a contract with them. And the way our specs work, they have about 21 working days before they can get out there earlier than that, but they don't have to start working. So that 21 days puts us July 9th. So we should start seeing people come out and start mobilizing into after maybe 4th of July. So we had a preliminary schedule from them for like the first 90 days. And I looked at it before I came here so that I could tell you kind of what to expect in the first season. And their schedule shows the requirement. We told them they had to do the ponds first, and so there's 3 ponds along the corridor that they'll build first, so that when they start doing the drainage, they'll have somewhere to flow to. They have indicated that they are going to be starting construction on all 9 retaining walls this summer, so they want to do the retaining walls first so that they can build the widening out to them. Those retaining walls are all in the south end. They are on the left side of the roadway, so if you're facing north, you're on the left side of the roadway, kind of scattered between the elementary school and Romance Hill. And so that is the segment that Belfair Water's complete in, and so that's a good thing that all those walls are in that location. So those are all planned for this year. They'll be doing drainage and road work and sidewalk grade also this summer. So that's what they have on their schedule right now. And like I said, that'll start up after 4th of July sometime. We're excited to finally get going on it. We're going to be in the south part while Belfair Water's in the north half of the alignment. And we'll be moving into that alignment when they're clear of that. But right now, that's just the first 90 days. Any questions?
How much is the contract for?
You would ask me that. I didn't write that down. Actually, I have it though. Hold on. No, it's not in this one. It's under 10 million, but I don't have the number. It seems like maybe it was about 10 million. The engineer's estimate was about 4% lower than what they bid, so it was real close to what we thought it was gonna cost us.
Arla?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, you said the retaining walls on the left side but facing north. You're facing north, do you mean the right side? You said Romance Hill in the elementary school.
So on the Feller side
Feller
is
side.
the left side. Okay. So if you're standing facing north, your left side would be
Same that.
Bob?
west, on the west side, how's that?
Yes.
How much of this work is planned for evenings? Is it all evening work? Is there going to be some daytime work? What's their schedule?
Well, we don't restrict the contractor based on what they can do in the night and the day. What we do is, we put in our contract, and I brought it because I knew people would ask that question. We tell them that they have to keep lanes open. So in our contract, they're allowed a single lane closure only between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. So if they can get off the roadway and do those retaining walls off the roadway in the day, then they will. But they can't stop traffic for more than 15 minutes, and there's a lot of problems with doing things in the day because of how busy it is.
Well, the way it is in Belfair, our traffic starts around 3 o'clock until maybe 6 o'clock every weekday.
They're not allowed to close the lane.
Any stoppage at all. It backs up now to the airport, so it may be worse than that.
Just have a barrel in the road cap.
That was my question.
Okay, Bob?
Is there some way I can get a copy of whatever your transportation plan, the traffic plan is?
Well, the
I'm glad to have
traffic,
that for the chamber.
for the chamber,
Yes.
I can send it to you. Did you
Yeah, if you
get one of
would.
my cards?
Oh, shoot.
You'd shoot me an email. I can
Okay.
clip them out of our contract.
Super. Be great.
Now, Sacanti's the same group that did the sewer out here.
Yes, they are.
They know the roads pretty well, at least.
Yeah, and actually, one of their bid items was very high, and that was for like the shoring. And they're like, yeah, we did the sewer, and we know what the soils are like out there, so they bid it accordingly because they understood what they had to deal with.
Ken Van Buster?
Michelle, I have a couple of questions. The culvert for the No Name Stream at Romance Hill, when is that scheduled?
Well, if everything lines up good, they want to do that this year.
This year?
They have to wait in line at the fabricator for a culvert, and it depends on, is there a lot of other culverts being built? How far back in the line are they? Are they gonna make their fish window?
I went by there on the way up here, and I noticed there's not a whole lot of water there. But I did notice there's 5 big volume pumps downstream from that, alongside the east side of the road. Where's that water being pumped to?
Whose pumps are those?
I don't know. But they're-
I don't think Sacanti's brought anything in. I believe, if anything, that's Belfair Water's pumps. Do you think that's
So
theirs?
they're dewatering?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of groundwater there, and I assume the DOT has to deal with that too.
Well, it's interesting that you should ask that question, because the department usually gets an NPDS or a construction stormwater permit to handle water for whenever you're disturbing ground, over a certain limit. And normally, we get that permit, and we own that permit. This contract does not do that. The department they did a pilot the last couple of years, and they are transferring coverage. We transferred coverage to Sacanti. So Sacanti has to either adopt the plans that we put in the contract or come up with their own. They have to deal with the water on their own. It's all their plan, and they'll be subject to DOE, if they have issues.
I'll defer my questions about the water district talks then. But I know they're moving a lot of water. And I can hear construction all night long, and I live, half a mile to the north. I'm hoping that they don't do a lot of nighttime construction, but, they gotta do something.
There's going to be a lot of nighttime construction,
Because
because you can't widen the roadway without it.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Any other questions? I have something I'd like to, I'd like to talk to you later on about the crosswalks again, and re-verify. But also, I want to strongly urge or recommend or let you know that you're going to be matter in hell if it don't happen type thing. Kevin's been very good working with it, but you can't let them not balance the traffic that they're sending through. One of the things that happens now, it happens with the water, people build water, stuff like that, it could be 5 miles on one side of the road, you get down here, you get past it, and there's nothing on the other, once you get past it. They have to be smart enough to, if the traffic is over here and there's nothing here, to let it go for a lot longer on one side and then bring it in. Because backing it up unnecessarily is a real shame.
Took me an hour and a half to get from the airport to my house in Lakeland Village.
I wish we had
So
some
for that
cameras
reason-
so people could see. It's hard.
No, but
because-
they have their radios right there, and they talk to each other. They can easily, yeah. Yeah. But please, that's very important, because it's just not necessary. And if it's not necessary, we'll be in a big spot.
Second part of my question was the length of this project. Are they gonna work through the winter time? The initial work you're talking about shouldn't take all summer, I would assume.
Well, the calendar that I have, just the one that I talked about, and the culvert, went through December. We have kind of a timing issue in this contract in that we have 3 locations that are subject to fish windows. We have the Romance Hill location that can't occur till July 15th. We have Minnie Creek up north, near like Subway, south of Subway. And then there's the repair that's being done on Belfair Creek, next to the Crown Auto, and so those, having 3 different fish windows, 3 different places that have to occur during a fish window means that we're gonna be there this fish window, July 15th through, I don't remember the end of it, but the next fish window too. And so if the working days lay out such that we can let them take a month off or something, we will do that. Because we know we have to wait for that.
So this, I think initially this was a one-year project, was that correct?
Well, 253 working days is what's in the contract. So that is working days. So you have weekends that don't count. Any day that rains so much they can't do anything, I won't charge them a working day. And then if we have any suspension for any reason, that won't get counted. So I think a year's reasonable, but it might be a little longer than that. I don't think it'd be much longer than that.
One of my things that I've been always real curious about when they needed a rebuild on is the water wheel. Are you gonna put a culvert in and rebuild that water wheel as a landmark and a tourist attraction? Because it is so beautiful and it is heritage. And I know a lot of people that I speak to on the mountain love the dang thing.
Yeah, you got to plan to do it.
No, that's in stage 2.
And the state wasn't planning on doing it, but I do know that there's a local nonprofit that just was talking about it, I think, 2 weeks ago, about going back in and redoing that. I'm one of the ones that screwed it up when I was a kid. I redid that water wheel, helped somebody we did it, we did it with plywood, not thinking about water and plywood. It seemed like a good idea at the time because it didn't work, but we tried, we were just young, and we tried to help the community.
I thought you could use the.
Private property, isn't it, or is that county?
No, it's school district property now,
Oh,
I
okay.
think. Yeah.
I figured you'd use the generating system off of it to LED the solar center.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions for Michelle? Yes, Herb.
One general comment, this is something for you to pass on, and I think DOT needs to do an educational bit. Right now, I'm seeing the turn lane, and there's too many stupid drivers that want to make a left turn, and they don't turn into the turn lane. They wait until that right lane opens up before they'll venture out. You know, unless we educate people properly that that turn lane is to turn into, this whole project's not doing a lot of good for us.
Well, I'm sure you'll take care of that for me.
I mean, I'm saying our list here at KBS, and I'm just hoping that it gets passed on to, it's a futile project to try to educate people, I know.
Well, there might be some signing that label it two-wheel or turn lane. I haven't really studied the signing plans at all.
Well, I'm just throwing it out, something to think about.
Well, in closing, one thing I want to share with you, again, the same thing I said before, The people out here, all the ones I've talked to, this has been going on for quite a while, are very thankful to DOT and how well you guys have worked with them financially when it came to, you know, the prices on the properties and the things that have occurred, helping with the driveways, like the basins, although some of it was a battle, we eventually got there, but most everybody found it very pleasant to work with and very open. So it was very much appreciated. Let's just hope that continues through this construction part, because this is where the fists start coming out.
Well, we have a really, really good team that's going to be out there in Belfair inspecting. I have one inspector in particular that's known in my office for working with the neighbors and everything, and so I think you'll be pleased with the crew that we have, and they'll be there. So.
Anything further?
Yeah, just real quick question. How long do you expect that portion of the road to be dirt?
Dirt?
Yeah. So they're going to give this sidewalls, which they're going to have to dig up some, right? So it's not going to be full pavement on the two.
They're never going to put you on. Well, let me qualify that. For the most part, they're going to slide you over to shoulders and keep 2 lanes of paved going while they're widening and building out a new portion. That's kind of how they move people around. We do have some super elevation curve correction that you might be driving on gravel for a couple days, but for the most part, you're going to be just shifted around onto pavement, not necessarily driving on dirt.
Yes.
If you're driving on dirt, you need to take a card and call me.
Yes, please.
4-wheel drive. Has there been any discussion with, in the state and the contractors having an open public meeting with all the construction people and the state people there to kind of go over some of these issues, you know? I know that I've been involved with projects with that, and it seems to help people buy into the project better. And this is such a large impact to Belfair that I think it would be worthwhile.
We would help you facilitate that. I think if you'd like to, if you could put that together, it'd be nice to have some candy in here.
Honestly, I've never heard of such a thing, but I've only been in construction for a couple of years. I definitely will be coming if I'm invited to give you updates and stuff. I can talk to Claudia and see if that's something that.
You really need to have the contractor hear this stuff firsthand sometimes. Because one of the gripes with the water line project I had was how bad the road patches were. In fact, I emailed you on it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
If they want to park on my property, they'll give us a little form. They're going to ask the dad, he used my property last time, so if they want to park on my property, they'll get a form. That's the cost.
They shouldn't be parking on anybody's property without permission.
No, I give permission. It was free.
Yeah.
I just let them park there, but
No.
this time, I'm just telling you, I won't. I can't say no.
Unless you get a meeting.
Yeah.
Public meeting.
Yeah, then they can have it for free then. Is there anything further, Fern? Then, again, thank you so much for coming, and we do appreciate the good parts that you're doing. We look forward to working with you. Hopefully you'll listen all the way through, because it will get rough. This is going to be the hard part now.
Oh, yeah, I know. I mean, people care about their driveways, and we know that, we understand that. People care about their mailboxes. Those seem to be the things that we get lots of calls about. Of course, nobody wants to sit in traffic, so.
But if we can't move them around, we're going to have lose the business.
Business too.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the thing. If we can't move them around, we can be able to have business, and we can't afford that here. Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Have a great day. Thanks for coming. Next up is our state Route 3 water main replacement project, Belfair Water District.
I have just a real simple outline of some of the highlights. I brought an extra copy for folks. I wasn't sure.
You one to the front, no? Thank you.
My name is Tom Pena. I'm the general manager of Belfair Water District. And, you know, we have time for lots of questions. I know that there's questions around, and, you know, I guess the first thing I'd like to say is this project has not been easy. This is a tough project for a lot of reasons. Phase one, I just want to give a couple of, I know there's some new folks in here, just give you an idea of some of the things, some of the basics of the project. One of them is the project is split into 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is, I don't want to spend much time on that because it's done. All of the entire water line has been installed, all the fire hydrants, all the services, all the appurtenances, valves, all that type of thing has been completed. So we're basically done with that. We were about 8% over cost due to just, additional things that were either overlooked in the contract, change conditions during construction, and those kinds of things. And that section is done. Phase 2, and phase 1 was from Sweetwater Creek to Romance Hill. Phase 2, which is what we're working on now, is from Romance Hill up to Colquitt Lane, which is right by Kitsap Bank. And that project is 4,600 lineal feet, 12-inch duct wiring pipe with all the valves, hydrants, services, all that kind of thing. And the funding for this portion of phase 2 is coming from USD Rural Development. We had a $1.99 million budget. I'm not sure where we are going to end up with it. It's going to be very tight. During construction, we ran into contaminated soils from, we haven't really identified for sure exactly the location where they came from, but we have not only do we have groundwater, we have a significant amount of groundwater. We also have contaminated soils that we're working with, the Department of Ecology on, and we have a contract with a couple of different agencies. One is a hauling agency, and the other one is a decontamination agency. So we're working on that, and so that's going to, between the excess water and the contaminated materials that we're getting into, we're going to have some issues. The other issue that we're going to have some potential extra charges for us. In some cases, some of the utilities that were supposed to be in different locations we've run into, which has caused us to go more into the roadway, and as a result of that, we're having to do more asphalt restoration and that kind of thing. So, but we're continuing on. We have about 3,000 lineal feet of pipe installed for phase 2, and so we have about 1,650 lineal feet left to go. It was a 4,600, or about 4,600 lineal feet total on phase 2. And so that's pretty much where we're at right now. I know the question of the pumps. Those pumps were installed by a dewatering contractor, and that water is being treated prior to being discharged into the ditch, which ends up ultimately going into Belfair Creek, and then they're monitoring the turbidity on a daily basis.
That goes into Mindy Creek, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's a small creek. I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not sure the name.
That's Mindy Creek.
Mindy?
Mindy Creek.
Yeah.
The one by the tavern?
Huh?
The one by the tavern? The creek, right?
The creek north of the tavern by the old fire station is Belfair Creek.
Right, that's Belfair Street up there.
Yeah.
Right.
Mindy Creek is back down by the peninsula where the dewatering pumps are.
Right.
Actually, there's several.
Yeah, there's water goes in both creeks.
Right.
Tom, can you tell me about where the contaminated soil was found?
Yes, it's right in front of Seabeck's Pizza. Up to
That was an old gas station.
right, up to
That we identified to the
Crown
county for the
Auto.
sewer.
Yeah, Crown Auto. Well,
My goodness.
yeah. Well, I can give you some information that I do know that material or Seabeck's Pizza had been treated. That piece of property, and they cleaned it up all the way to the state highway right of way, and that's where they stopped. So the right of way, the only contamination that I know of is in the state right of way, and it's a good possibility. We had a hydrogeologist come out and do some surveying of the area, and his theory on it is that there's a good possibility that it could be coming from the Crown Auto site, which is also, has some contamination in it. So it's, we don't know exactly where it's coming from, but it's definitely, I mean, we knew it, we knew there was a possibility of it.
Well, it's really unfortunate because when him and Dobie ran into the contaminated soil with the sewer project, they ran over $200,000, $300,000. They hired a consultant to come out and talk to folks to identify where all the old service stations were, and it's like we're not talking to each other.
No, it's not. That's not the problem. The problem is that the contaminated area is underneath the asphalt in the right of way, and so it's
bigger than
just about impossible to clean it up without totally taking the road apart. And
Migrates. How long before you think that guys will be done?
I'm hoping that within a month that we'll have all of the pipe in the ground and be, our side of the project, all the restoration and, up to the requirements from DOT will be done. I'm throwing that number out. You never know what you're going to run into. When you start doing underground, it's a tough go. So, we're doing the best we can.
Other questions? Herb?
On phase 1 that's complete, are we using the new pipe now? And
Yes.
we've abandoned the...
No, we've taken the old one out of service.
Right, and we're running it through the new one, and during the highway construction, they're gonna remove the old one.
Exactly.
Further questions? Judy?
Yeah, as you know, the project that I want to do about the hydrants and the fire hydrants, you are moving those over to the east side of Highway 3 on all of them? Is that correct?
Yes.
What happens for the buildings on the west side?
Well,
for
they still meet the mandate for distance from a fire hydrant.
So that means you run pipes across the highway if you have fires on the other side?
Right, yeah. They would, for example, if they had a fire on the west side of the highway,
Yeah.
then they would bring it's not even like it is now. All the hydrants are on the east
west
side.
side now.
That's, the fire marshal is the one that directed the placement of the hydrants, so.
Ouch. For a project for me, because I have to have fire flow for the project, and that means.
Right, and there was a design done, and I don't know where your project is in the scheme of things, but we're more than willing to work with you. The biggest problem that we have is we, as a water district, cannot do the project, and we can't add on to it in terms of the design that was initially approved by WashDOT and submitted to USDA for funding, because USDA requires a permit and approval prior to any changes. We asked them if we could make any scope of work changes on it when you came forward and said you wanted to pull a line across the highway. They said absolutely you cannot do that with USDA funding. So that's when we said if you're willing to pay for it and design it, that's fine. You can do that.
Does that mean that any other development that goes on, they have to pay for any extra fire flow and stuff like that too?
Right. It's typical of any development.
And I know that the WashDOT lady, there you are, but, so once this project is done, does that mean that if anybody wants to put a fire hydrant underneath the road, is that still possible?
It's probably going to be there's probably going to be a moratorium on any open cuts on the highway. I don't know what the situation is for.
Well, I don't know what the rules are, but I know that my office is working in Edgewood, and as soon as we got about, almost done, they were allowing, of course it's a town, so they have more control, but they were allowing contractors or developers to tap into the water line that we put in.
Normally, there's like a 3-year moratorium or a 5-year moratorium on additional lines, any kind of utilities to dig up the road. They might require.
Ask him that question,
Yeah,
and
there's
get you his
possibility.
number.
Other questions? Hearing none, thank you very much. We appreciate you coming down and giving us an update on this. Next up is citizen input on items that create consistency between the urban growth areas for Allen and Belfair developmental codes with the 2016 Growth Management Act update. Barbara, would you like to give a brief description of what the update is that we're doing with the comprehensive plan on the road?
Okay. I wasn't prepared, so I'll wait. Okay, so I'm sure hopefully everybody knows that Mason County has to have its comprehensive plan, its development regulations, and its resource ordinance updated every 10 years. Ours is due in 2016. We started last year. According to the Department of Commerce, we should be done today. That didn't really work out, and it's not very practical, but our money ran out. So we're waiting right now to find out if we'll get another grant to get us into the 2015-2016 budget cycle to continue our update. We'll continue working on it either way, but it would certainly be helpful to have some state funding to complete the task. So what we're doing basically for the update, you have to go through your comprehensive plan and make sure that it meets all the minimum state requirements, any laws that have changed during the last 10 years. You need to make sure that you go through each one of your chapters, you make sure that your population projections are in place, your current population breakdown, your land use, all the statistical information is generally contained in a single chapter, and that's kind of what I've been primarily working on now. We are having our first kind of workshop to start going over the material on Monday, and that material is going out to the Planning Advisory Commission, and we're going to look at the first 2 chapters. We've gotten a lot of public comments so far, and the comment is kind of touching on all different aspects of the plan and the regulations and the resource ordinance, so we're going to try to stay focused and start kind of at the beginning and work our way through to stay organized on the information. One of the things that the commissioners have decided would be a good idea would be to look again at the development regulations that are in place for the urban growth areas. Mason County, as a rural area, has development regulations in our code under Title 17 for zoning, but then each one of the urban growth areas have their own sub-area plan, and out of that sub-area plan came their own unique set of regulations, and they were all kind of done at different times, and they're not similar pretty much at all. So it's challenging when we try to enforce the land use regulations that you have to find out which UGA they're in, and then the setbacks are different, the lot sizes are different, the housing density is different, the height of a building is different, everything is kind of different. So they thought maybe this would be a good opportunity to kind of look at those regulations, not necessarily Shelton, because Shelton urban growth area is a reflection of the city's codes that they use, because that's intended to be annexed in the next 20 years, I believe is the idea behind that. But to look at Allen and to look at Belfair and see if there's any way that maybe they can become more similar with each other, bring them more into alignment so that they're not so different from maybe either just each other or maybe more in line with the county's overall regulations. And we have put out a news release asking for people that are interested in being part of a joint citizen advisory committee, people that live in Belfair, the people that live in Allen, people that live outside of that area, to kind of come together and help us pick through those regulations and look at the things that are maybe unique, that don't necessarily need to be there, was a good idea 10 years ago when we wrote it, but maybe it's not working out now, and kind of take a fresh look at those regulations and bring them up to date and maybe bring them more into alignment with each other. Good enough?
Thank you, Commissioner Jeffries.
So one of the things that we also added into the work plan for this advisory group was, what are some things that could be done that help make these urban growth areas more viable? And I acknowledge that this was everybody's first crack at sub-area planning, and we had ideas about how we wanted this community to grow, but the truth is, that was theoretical. And it wasn't necessarily market-based, and so now's a great time to look, like just as Barbara had said, because it still makes sense. And I'm very hopeful that we can be really market-driven regarding what we require and what a development codes look like, because frankly, you can put all the planning and regs you want, but if it can't be done by a builder and still make money on it, it's not going to happen. So, really hopeful that we'll get some really good input and be able to really grow these urban growth areas in a way that will create healthy, vibrant communities.
One example to share with you as an idea, here in Belfair, there was a large developer that was looking at developing some homes up here on the hill, very large developer. And when they got to looking at the homes and started to pencil it out, they found out in the Belfair UGA codes and allowances, they're allowed less land coverage here than they are in the regular county. So in our urban growth area, for some reason, we created a situation where you can only cover this much land, but everywhere else in the county you can cover this much, and you'd figure it'd be the other way around in the urban growth area. You want to be able to go, especially when you have a situation where you can build right up to the property line, but yet that seems to be an issue. Yes?
Barbara, you were pretty involved when we developed the Allen plan. Just wondering, how much do you think it's going to change from what we developed at that time?
I think that as far as Allen goes, maybe the minimum lot sizes might need to be relooked at. Maybe the land uses allowed in some of your commercial areas. Maybe some of that could be a little bit more relaxed. I know that Commissioner Sheldon has been interested in having codes that are less about you can do A through D and more about kind of intent, more along the lines of, instead of restricting it down to a list of things you can do, maybe listing things that they don't want to do, and then making a little bit more flexibility. I know that in the past in Allen there was some individuals that had wanted to open up some sort of a school, a retraining for veterans, but because the zoning was really specific about not letting schools, we had a really hard time getting a facility like that in there. So maybe kind of loosening up a little bit of that tight language that might cut off opportunities for things that, you know, technically it's a school, but you understand what I'm saying, a little bit more flexible.
But Chief, only so much would be driven that way anyway. That's one of the reasons why you have this citizens committee also. They're going to have a lot of their own ideas and vet some of those things out themselves before bringing it to the planning commission, of which we have a member here. Our base is very well represented on the planning commission as well. There'll be more process than just her saying something or me saying something, or there's more to it than that. So it's kind of hard to tell you what will change and what will be suggested for change. But there'll be plenty of opportunities to weigh in as those recommendations come through. Yes?
What is the scope of that? Is it going to include just what can happen in the current UGA, or will it also have the opportunity to adjust the boundaries or the designation of what a UGA is?
I don't know that that's part of this particular plan we're talking here. There has been some discussions about that, but whether we're even able to do it, because some of the recommendations, for example, that Commissioner Sheldon may have talked about was like Riverhill, but the odds of getting that out, that's the reason why the UGA was created. That's our highest densely populated area. We can have the discussion, but there's no...
I mean topography, right? You look at UGA from the top and you see a lot of property that would be great for high density homes, but then when you actually walk it, you go, right.
Yeah.
You know?
I know.
Hey, this is squishy, or they were climbing up to that third story house you want, right? So a good portion of what's in our UGA for density can never be built on. So I'm just kind of thinking you have this square feet that you're hoping to put people on. What about adjusting where that is with a current land?
You know, I think it's worth looking at. I think the whole reason you do have a 10-year update is to look at the whole thing. Again, there's some really squishy language in our charge to, what would make a more viable urban growth area. And if it is the fact that we need more developable land, that's it. So I think there's room there for consideration of all things, including boundaries.
But the specific thing she was talking about, that's probably not going to be there, but, this discussion's going on. I saw a hand in the back. Ken?
It was me, Randy.
Sorry. We're sitting down there low. I noticed it was your
Just
dad.
like the folks from the Allen Community Association, they put a lot of work into their plan, and I can't really speak to their plan, but I know they put a lot of work into it. The Belfair Sub-Area Planning Group put a lot of work into the Belfair Sub-Area Plan. And over the last 10 years, I've asked the commission to consider reestablishing the sub-area planning group. I don't know that you can really get consistency between the two urban growth areas. They're not the same. They're in different watersheds. Belfair's, the county's got a grant to even figure out right now what developable land it has at Belfair. So while on the surface it looks good to try to get some consistency, it's going to be really tough. And maybe the thing to do is to just merge the two urban growth areas together, shrink them or whatever you have to do. And they're building a new high school here on this campus. This should be the center of their urban growth area. This is where all the transportation comes to, where all the children are being educated. So just a thought that I wanted to throw out. And I think it's important for the committee that's established to know, I don't know if the Allen Urban Growth Area is already built out, how much more land is ready to build on or can be built on. Where I know in the Belfair Urban Growth Area there's quite a bit, but it's up on the plateau, not down in the and there's kind of a joke in Belfair, I don't know if you've heard it, but Belfair is the business district for the Allen Urban Growth Area because that's where most of the people come to do business. So that's my 2 bits.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Bonnie?
I agree with Ken on a lot of the points as far as the consistency, because they're very different situations. One's right on the waterfront, and it's tough trying to develop there because of a lot of other restrictions. But I think there does need to be some consistency between the two. Are you going to be looking at Union and Hickspote, even though they're not official UGAs? They also, no, I mean really, they're not included in that. They don't have theirs yet.
This is urban growth area.
And they're not urban growth.
Rural activity centers have a whole other set of rules
That's-
and laws.
Yeah, we didn't set that up.
And it might be worth looking at that as well, but not with this group.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that before the fact rather than after the fact, after they've already developed it, then try to back down from it. It would make more sense to at least have them aware of kind of what's going on and see how it fits for them. Because they are both more like Allen, and they're going to kind of end up, if they go the wrong direction, they're going to have to back up, and then you'll kind of have to go through this again as they're developing their urban growth area plans, which they will at some point. It's just a consistency thing. I think throughout the county is a good idea to at least acknowledge that in the future they're probably going to be under the same thing. And the other thing, the EDC did do developable land, the buildable commercial type lands that EDC was looking for. What is developable? And I think that's something that should be pulled out again and looked at in the terms of if they're going to be doing it again. Because there already is some. And he makes a good point. Allen hasn't developed past its boundaries, but those have been very, very tight, and the developable land thing did show where some industrial lands could go. Industrial land survey, that's what it was. But yeah, that at some point I think does need to be looked at, because the lot sizes are everything is so compressed in there, it was difficult to get, any space, because there was no place to grow, even though it is
unofficially growing south and some officially growing north, they're really kind of in Neverland. So I think at some point that would be a really good conversation to have. Does it make sense now? I think with Belfair, it's that same question, what makes sense now as far as the boundaries? And I don't know if they want to shrink them, but they may want to move them a little bit.
As for the rest of the people, some of these people were on the original committee, spent a lot of time doing it. Bonnie Knight was one of them, I'm sure, I think Judy Scott, you were one of them, were you not?
Yeah, Richard and I were on the
Ken Van
committee,
Musker
so-
was heavily involved, as I'm sure were others. So there's a lot of vested interest in it, but at the same time, it's time for an update, it's time to look at it, time to have those conversations again and see if we can't make it better. And perhaps even spur some type of economic development or some other aspect out of this for our community. Take advantage of opportunities, right? It's our job. Other questions? Rob?
Just,
I almost forgot
how
your
many
name.
people have, yeah. How many people have applied? I'm just curious. Three now? Yeah, okay. So just to know, I'm pushing everybody I can push to jump on that.
It's still open.
To apply for the committee, you
Right.
know.
So application's still open. Go on to either call the county and the commissioner's office, or if you're on the internet, go on the internet and click on the advisory boards.
You know, it's funny, because I've had calls from so many of you and others in the community, have a lot of ideas, a lot of things that bother them about, a lot of changes they want. This is their opportunity and your opportunity to actually affect that change, to actually have a say and help us. Bonnie?
You're right, Richard and I were on that committee for 9 years. We ate, slept, breathed, I mean, we went through that hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And it is difficult if somebody doesn't, I mean, we went through a learning process of trying to figure out what the heck even the terminology was. It's not for the faint of heart to be on that committee, is all I can say, is that it is a heck of a lot of really hard work and understanding of stuff that is not that easy to understand, and still try to work together with it. I'm putting in for it, but there you go. So now you're going to have four.
Say a kind word that wouldn't scare these people off.
No, I'm sorry. No, we brought so many things in, and we had so many ideas, and we were so wrong so many times. And I know with Belfair, I worked on the Belfair planning for a long time, only to have somebody from outside come in and say, you can't do that. We just spent hours and hours and hours discussing coming to an agreement on something, only to find out that you really can't go down that path because of this. And that, I think, it is a comprehensive process, and I think guidance in that is really important, so that you know what your outcomes can be, and it's more, you get to choose which outcomes you want from the list, rather than having it wide open, because that's what has happened. And people get all disappointed because they can't have what they thought it should be. And I think a lot of guidance is, Bob Fink was great about that, and so was Barbara, and I don't know Barbara's been in it, but it's a really important function.
Thank you, Bonnie. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this issue at this time? Bob?
I guess within the wide spectrum of land use, historically Belfair was known for its car lots. We've outgrown that. But my concern is the way we're using existing land. And I think we're getting to be known as a pot center, which I'm not proud of at all. And I don't know how restrictive we can be as far as land use. Can we put a limit on the number of these businesses? We're chemical enough as it is. We don't need any more of that.
The state has limited the number of retail marijuana establishments to 4. Now the whole five? Oh, 4 countywide and 1 in the city of Shelby. Now medical marijuana is a whole other thing.
But there's a new law that just passed that's going to bring them together now, and some of them may not survive that, but most of them seem to be able to survive it, but it's going to be a lot tougher. But just like anything else, that's how it may start. First thing we did when we first came in is we got control of that. You guys remember we had 3 and 4 of them right here in Belfair back then of medical, and they were starting to even have a gunfight with each other and stuff. And what we did is we put restrictions and stopped the moratorium, put restrictions instead, so those other 3 that were about ready to open never opened. So we were able to control that aspect of it. But with it being legal, there's certain laws and stuff that come about for zoning, and for retail sales, the urban growth areas are the places that make sense for retail sales, instead of having it next to mom and pop kettle's house.
Where are the 4 that are retail sales right now? Do we have 4 now?
Two of them are Belfair. One of them is on the, in the Hoodsport, or Potlatch area, I think.
I believe that's Mattress Inn.
The one right by King's is better, I think it was the other one that was opening. And then,
Won't be around.
Harvard,
yeah, Barbara. Where are the pot
all the
shops?
retail shops.
The retail ones.
Don't you shop there?
I think there's two in Belfair, one in Allen, I'm not sure that we actually have 4 up and running yet, but we need to have.
So that you got the one on the old Belfair where they're growing. You got-
Hold on, please. We gotta stick to what we're doing, and we'll talk over the top of each other. Right now, we're talking about is the retail parts. And the only parts that are retail are the ones that are in the urban growth areas, the other ones are not retail. There may be grows and agricultural entities, but they're not allowed to sell retail. They're not allowed to sell to the open market at all.
Well, then if we've got 2 here that are legal, and the rest of them that you counted them the other day, I think it was 5 or 6 or
Yeah,
something. Are they all recreational then?
Yes, well, no, they're not recreational. The other ones are medical.
Or
And-
medical, I
Yeah.
thought you were recreational.
One of them is an empty building now. I know that. Another one just tried to open, and we had Barbara go out and put a cease and desist on them immediately. She brought the sheriff and everything with her and stopped that because they just literally overnight put up signs, taped up the windows, and turned on the lights. It was like, wow.
Without an occupancy permit or anything?
Without nothing. Not even a conversation. It just, overnight it popped up, and then there was another one in Allen that I got a phone call about. Other than that, I think there's 2 medical here that are actually going, though legally, right? The other one's an empty building. They don't really use it. It's called an annex now, but they don't actually use it. But the one up by the Texaco and the one in the little yellow house. Is that correct? Yeah. But as time goes on, just like everything else, we saturate the market. I don't think they can.
Has the state decided how they're going to handle the recreational businesses?
They're forcing them to go underneath the umbrella of, or the recreation, but it's already been decided, yes.
No, I mean medical.
Yes, they're forcing them to go underneath the umbrella of the recreational, of the commercial. So after they don't get licensed or anything else like that, they still have to meet certain requirements, even though they're grandfathered, they're kind of not. If they don't meet the legal connections, stuff like that, be able to.
So in effect, if they meet the requirements, then we would have more than 2 recreational, because they would transform from medical into recreational.
That's correct, and they're trying to figure out what to do with that. That starts in July. That was just passed here just recently, and so they're all trying to figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, I saw what it was.
Yeah. Cat.
What's the one that went into the old Mr. Bill's sports car?
That's the.
That's the one you shut down?
Yeah, that's
Because the sign was up one day and it was down the next
Yes.
afternoon, okay.
Yeah.
Good work.
So, other questions on,
Commissioner, can I say one last thing?
please?
Not about cod. Up to here with cod. I just wanted to address the chief's comments about what kind of ideas we were kind of tossing around for like Allen. And those were just some things that I had heard. I remember when the Allen stuff finally got finished and we took it to the Planning Advisory Commission, and I don't remember exactly who was on the Planning Advisory Commission, but you know, it was your baby, and suggested changes for it were difficult to take. It's like you worked very hard on it. It's like it was like a 10-year process to get through that. And then when somebody wanted to change it, it became difficult. So I just want you to know that I'm not sitting in a vacuum thinking of changes for your code. I hear things, but I'm not going to put forth any changes that just come from me based on what I think might be a good idea. The only things that you'll see come to you are things that I get from the public or suggestions that come from the committee or the planning commission. So I want to make sure that you understood that I'm not writing the code amendments the way that I think that they should read. I'm only going to put down on paper what the citizens that live in that area tell me what they would like to see. Does that make sense?
Well, that's what I explained earlier. She won't be directing it, or it'll go through the proper channels. We have plenty of proper channels, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for those that don't even volunteer to speak, whether it'll be through that committee, or it'll be through the planning commission, or it'll be through the actual commission meetings in our public hearings. It won't just be thrown down. There's going to be plenty of public discussion. Do you still have a question, Bob?
Yeah, well, just a comment. We did work 10 years on it. But it's been 10 years since we did it too, and we've been seeing, we can see things that maybe could be changed or updated or whatever. So, I mean, I don't think there's a total resistance to anything like that, it's just,
Well, that being
That makes
said,
sense.
I want to thank everybody very much for coming today. Your participation is highly appreciated. Last year, at this time, nobody showed. I mean, I think we had 2 or 3 people in the audience, and so I reminded them of that, and boy, did you ever make me look like a fool. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm proud of us. Judy?
Thank you, commissioners, for coming up and visiting us.
Thank you. We are adjourned, guys. Have a great day.